I gotta record this. So Vickie Crystalline and Mr. Edward, so beautiful. Um, we've been sitting here discussing, and this feels so collective of what's taking place with each and every one of us individually. And if you want to describe.
Yeah. Well, we're really sort of getting into what's this feeling that's so potent around the earth at the moment. And it's interestingly for me, it's actually the most potent feeling is almost like a secondary feeling that stems from something else. And it's like this feeling of overwhelming comprehension, like overwhelming. I think it's just the sheer amount of energy to an extent that's coming from the collective realizations that are happening, and then the realization that they are collective, and that therefore like amplifying each other. And this is quite it's quite remarkable because you notice that the overwhelming feeling is so different, or it's so differently perceived. One, like, and if you're in a place where you're comfortable to explore that feeling of the overwhelming sheer amount of energy coming through, it's beautiful because you can invite it in. But if you're not in a space where you can comfortably explore that and surrender to it, then it's like really probably it becomes heavy.
Yes.
It feels like it's weighing you down because it is, in a sense, that's sort of purpose. It's like it's a calling for your nervous system to process its place in the universe. It's like you realizing that, and it's this collective energy of people starting to realize that they are the universe,
Yes.
and what that means, and what the I think response is, the responsibility is probably what comes with that. And it's like, and it's not like it's a bad overwhelming, but it's just, if you don't process it and follow the origins of that energy, then your mind creates another narrative up about the energy. And it's and that's the sort of trick, I think, because if we settle into it, we realize it's really, wow, it's a foreteller of what's to come, because it's bringing these people into a harmony out of a slowing down, I guess, a becoming of an essence rather than like a need or a requirement. It's like lots of our patterns are just from like needs, wants, actually, probably not needs. They're from sort of wants, and how wants have sort of rippled through history and affected the way that we as humans have lived our lives. And now it's like, there's this sort of truth being just brought into people's visions, like, and it's this realization that this is coming up for everyone, that this truth of how we are meant is maybe the wrong word, but how we are capable of being in this universe. And then it's like the realization of that is compounded by the realization that other people are having that realization. And you can say that in so many different ways, and it doesn't really matter. It only really matters if it points other people into themselves to also have that realization, because it's a deeper level, that realization is just a precursor to what a collective of people who have come to that awareness of their unity will then become. It's so interesting.
It's beautiful. I
Yeah.
want to add to this. Over the last couple days, I've had this, and it started off like powerful, and it subsided, and I had this spinning like going on in my body. It was so exhausting. It made me stop. Like I couldn't pay attention to anything because the spinning, like if I looked at my phone, made me nauseated. If I did anything, it made me nauseated. Well, I know that everything is meant to happen. And so I know there's a purpose behind it. So as I was allowing the couple days of the spinning to occur, what they were showing me was, you know how we go and we, outside of ourselves, we used to go to look for things outside of ourselves. Well, I started going into the spin of myself. And you know how our ears and they ring all the time, and it's just so part of us that we really don't pay attention, because it's so part of me. My ears ring all the time. They go up, they go down, but I don't really tune into them.
Mm-hmm.
This time I did. It's like everything made me pay attention to my body.
Yes.
And
That's it brought you in deeper into the present moment.
yes,
It was the same thing. I had a terrible migraine and I never got them, and it was the same thing. I couldn't do anything. But so eventually after that, it felt amazing because it really brought me into just being in that moment, even if there was the pain there. It's like it felt really good because it brought me deeper into the moment.
truly,
Mm.
so beautiful. Well, what it showed me is I started connecting into the frequency that was ringing in my ears. It was like off the charts the last couple of days. Like even right now, it's like ringing these high pitched tones. And so I was just settling into these tones that were just like running in through me. And it was the trees.
Mm.
It was the trees that were connecting into me. Like I could feel their roots running through my system, their frequencies running through my system. And the trees told me to connect like they connect. I mean, the roots run through Gaia, but there's an energetic source that they communicate through the air.
Mm. Mm.
And when I was connecting into that part of the air of my lungs, the land came up. And that's so beautiful that you had brought up land before. So automatically, when an idea comes up, we can see it. It's already created. Yet what I was doing is I was like, okay, well, how do I make this create? I was taking and trying to figure out how I could create this.
Mm.
And it felt hard, like you said.
Mm.
And it felt rigid, and it felt like unsteady.
Mm.
Like you had mentioned before, in this circulation that was happening in my body, it was like I was finding my foundation, a steadiness within me. And then the roots in the trees took me to, what we call our social media? The social media that's already there of how we used to connect across worlds, across universes. And I feel and know this is where we're going. And as we connect into these parts of us, all these pieces to the puzzle are coming together. It's like we're all assisting each other, not like we had to do it before.
Mm.
You know how we see an idea and then, okay, now we got to create it. Now we just see the idea and it'll create itself.
Mm.
so gently. And it's like I could see all the facets coming together. And where it took me was to this place of peacefulness that it started calming all the fragments of my cells in the spinning. And then last night, I just allowed it to just take me there. And it was so funny. It was like I was in the fairyland. And what they're showing me, what I had brought forward before, because we're multidimensional, we can be at two places at one time in our physical form. We can be at 10 places at one time in our physical form. And that's what we're connecting to. We're connecting to this grid that is outside, it's inside. But I don't want to say but, because it's not a but. Yet it's connecting us to this super consciousness of how we have always worked together before. Not through like technology. It's beautiful because but it's like taking me to a place of connecting in a different way. It's the only way I can describe it. And so it's so beautiful because we're in a new, and how we created before is not how we create now. And so as we are seeing what I've recognized in my own life, as I'm seeing and recognizing things that I have set forward for the creation to come forward, all I have to do is let it create itself. And just allow my energy to know that it's going to create itself in entirety. And I don't know, it just feels so freaking lovely and wonderful. And I don't know, I can't put words on it.
It can't put words on it. And I just feel like what's getting us there is also the celebration of where we've come from.
Yes.
And I think for me, people connect to that in different ways, but I love the stories. I love the human stories. And a beautiful one came up. The trees sort of spoke through that to me. And it was this lady who was writing about, it's a book called Braiding Sweetgrass. And a lot of beautiful like sentiment in that. But the one that jumped out was when she was sharing about the pecan trees. And I didn't actually know this, but it surprised me. But the pecan trees, they're in sync. So not every year is it a real bumper harvest. But when it is a bumper harvest, all the trees have a bumper harvest. And the way that works is it's more likely that their lineage will survive, because when they produce a lot, not everything gets eaten. It's more likely that some sort of become sprout and become trees. And it spoke to me that that's sort of what we're doing as a human family. We have listened to the trees. We have. It's people haven't like berate, but like I feel like we have listened to that guidance. It's like we should do it like the trees. And that's why it's sort of not going always the way that people expect, because it's no longer for one person. It's not like, oh yeah, if we as a species create one realized version of us, that will be a success. And that is the natural way to do it, and that's what we've done. But now it's like, oh, we've done this enough times. We can all raise up now, and like essentially, and I feel like we're just a manifestation of this part of the universe doing that. It's like a collective harvest, and we are the sort of we're, I mean,
So funny. I feel like seeds.
yeah,
That's what I
yeah.
feel like, a seed.
We are sort of the like, yeah, sort of the seeds to
Wow. Wow.
well, I would, yeah, we're sort of the species to initiate that connection, I guess, and that everything is connected through us,
Yes.
through our relationships with everything on this planet. So in that way, we sort of connect, and it's not to say we're the only connection, that they don't have their own connections, but it's a way, it's a path,
Yes.
because we're made of it, because we're made of, our bodies are made of the things we consume. Not that they're just made of that, not that we're just made of that, but it's a part of it, it's a facet of it. And it's a beautiful way of like, we as beings sort of weave a lot of, we talk about like the fabric of the universe, but we are sort of the weavers of that fabric through our connections throughout the universe, through time and space. um and that's pretty special. And it feels like that's the sort of realization happening, that like we are at that point in the, where we're sort of like, yeah, the weaving is sort of like the sewing,
Yeah.
very much like, it's like, and now there's sort of a point where you come back to places where you have woven, and you sort of like harvest, I guess, would be the best sense. And so we were the seeds. I feel like we were the seeds, and now we have we're sort of coming into our flowering.
Yeah.
And with the flowering, we have the realization of what our fruits are. And that's where the overwhelm comes from, because we're learning as a species what is the fruits that we give. And fruits are given freely.
Yes.
Like, fruits are very interesting, like the energy behind them. They're not like even roots, which are, dug up. Fruit is like the most free form, like gift in nature. And we like, when the plant's growing, maybe it needs to protect itself, but generally when it gets to the fruiting, it's it sort of doesn't need to protect itself. I get this feeling, it's like it's able to fruit because it became strong enough to fruit. A weak tree doesn't fruit. So um in that sense, I feel like we are at the flowering. We're more at the flowering. Some of the early fruits coming through, but the collective of humanity is at the flowering stage, where it's sort of feeling into what the fruit might become. And this beautiful stage, you can sort of like, and it's almost like we're being brought to slow down so we can like smell that flower and savor it and take it in while it's there. And yeah, we're
It's
you take yourself in.
it's so incredible because when I was filling into your conversation, um, and I brought forward the seeds,
Mm,
I didn't feel them. I felt them as ancient, but not ancient. There's no way I can describe it. It's
mm.
like the seeding of the noon, and then we're connecting into that rootage system and flowering into, wow, like takes my breath away. It's like
Yes,
flowered.
and flowering is the point when the breeding happens, and when the cross pollination happens, and the new comes out of the flowering. That's like it's a big choice point, isn't it?
Yes, that's so funny to me that you said that, because today for us to do anything in our life, we have to make a choice.
Mm,
And today there is many of my addictions, like the phone, and I've been letting that go slowly, but I'm just kind of done. I want to connect into the purity, not be addicted to it. And what I mean by is, how we do things on every level. We do it at a particular time. We do things constant. Like I want to let go of all that, and I want to be free of choice. What that means, I don't know, but it feels good.
Free of choice.
Yeah.
That Alan Watts had a brilliant quote about that. He said, "Not having to choose is the epitome of luxury."
Wow.
It's sort of what everyone wants, but you just want a good curator. It's
I love that.
Yeah, you I think that is interesting. It's why people like going to restaurants and having, the set menu or something, because they don't have to choose, but there's sort of a reputation that it will be delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, even as we were talking about that, it's like my guides are taking me completely out of my comfort zone. Every aspect of my life to reach higher depths of myself. Wow, I just feel that. Wow. Even in just my breath, and something we do so we take it for granted, for our breath, for our hearing, for our sight. So beautiful. That's all popping in. But when we allow it to be in a pure form of the self, without limitations, I don't know, there's a clarity to it. It's like everything connects, not one part. Like the whole connects. And what I've recognized in my body over the last day is how it connects in my whole body. You know how you visually see something and you internalize it? It's like my whole body is visualizing it.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. I feel exactly what you're saying there. Like, usually you have like the picture in your mind, but there's it's sight, and when your body sees it, it's your body it's beyond that one sense of sight. It's like all your senses are feeling it, seeing it. It's much more than and it feels like when you have that feeling, it feels like a more powerful, a more direct way of sensing it. It seems like the sight comes from that, and that it's a more primary sense that we've sort of forgotten. And it's so like all encompassing. And it's almost like that is what the overwhelming feeling that is around is opening up. The feeling comes from the opening up of that sense, which is really, really, really amazing.
I feel like we went full circle right now. Like it brought us back where we started. Because it is when we open ourselves up to all we are, we're trying to fit them into a box like we've been taught before. Like, okay, I'm a channel, I let that go. I can see my vision in my third eye. Sometimes I see colors and like, I want to say like a clip. Sometimes it's black and white. Sometimes it's word on the chalkboard. And I let that go. I can feel things. I can feel other people's emotions. I let that go. And now it's like my whole body. It's not one sensory. It's like,
that's interesting. Yeah, because I feel what you're saying is you get attached to the way that you make your choices. And it doesn't matter if that's like, going to a figure outside of you, like an authority to make the choice for you, or if you go to an authority within inside you, whether it's like, the way I see, or, but you're saying there's a way of making the choices that comes from your whole being, not just your sight, not just what maybe people would say it is more of a feeling, but it's like to get into that feeling that we're talking about, you sort of have to unlock the whole sensing of the body before you can receive the guidance that way.
And I feel with the spinning, it did it, because I had to release everything because it was making me feel crazy. And when I mean crazy, it was like, oh, and another thing is when the spinning happened, you know how we have locked boxes inside of us? It was like all these boxes like opened up. I couldn't stop them. And one of the things that all these secrets that, you know, people tell you, you know, I'm gonna tell you a secret, and you hold on to it and you lock it away. And all these secrets started coming up through my life. And I was just like, it's so funny because of what we hold on to that we don't realize what we carry in our system. And it was just like funny. It's like all the boxes in the spinning of my own energy, it like opened everything, like all the keys were unlocked to everything that I had hidden. The one thing it brought forward to me was it took me to a black pyramid, and I felt tremendous amount of fear here in this black pyramid. And now we're both light and dark, and we have played all light and dark parts. Well, I seen this like demon part of myself. I didn't feel fear. It was actually making me feel funny, but I could feel the fear in it. But I didn't feel fear is the only way I could say. And so I just allowed myself to just fill that pyramid with the light. And like even right now, it feels so radiant.
That is the choice. That's the only choice. But or at least it's the simplest that you can have. It's like the only binary choice is light or dark. So if you only want to make one choice, that's the one to make. And then you can just be like, well, I just choose the truest version of that, and then you can let the universe make the choices for you in a sense.
Yeah, because the multi-universe, which you are,
listens to your commands.
Yeah, and it comes in with clarity.
And
then our mind and how we like move through our energy system, it kind of, what I was shown is like it staggered off into different fragments of ourself. What they're showing me today is like these fragments are more in my own energetic system. It's like they're clearer, like they can happen, like these fragments of that can still happen, but it's with like pure intent is the word that I want to use. Of it, yeah, it just feels, and like I don't even gotta stay on focus of what pure intent means, because a lot of times we get these ideas, we get these aha moments, and then we're trying to figure out, with me, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what does this mean? And that, to me, what I've recognized is it's an attachment.
It is.
I'm trying to make it fit.
It's a way of seeing. It's a way. It's using, but actually, like pure intent. It's a. I noticed I didn't actually try to comprehend that word when it came to me. I sort of felt it. It's I think it's important to recognize when we use language, like use pure intent, the language is just a vehicle to transmit an essence or an energy. And we look at the word and think that's it. That's what's being transmitted, but that's not what's being transmitted. It's the language is just a vehicle for an energy. And I say just a vehicle. It's more than that, because the existence of that vehicle allows a lot of facilitates a lot of creation. However, it's not the source of what it's presenting.
Yes.
It's like a print. It's like a print, sort of. Someone said to me today, they said a quote is something like, "That's a little bit like sending a kiss with a messenger." It's not the same thing. I thought it was a brilliant quote. I'd never come across it before, but it's like, so language is a little bit like that. It is slightly sending a kiss with a messenger, because it comes from it's another way of doing something that we've become accustomed to it being the only way of doing something,
Yes.
of communicating something, but it's not the sole way of communicating that we have communicating as beings. And I feel like that's what it comes down to. And it's like, as you said, we're coming back to where we were at the beginning, which is for the reason of like realizing the value of the primary or primal way that we had of communicating as a species.
Yes.
It's you know the story of all those stories in human history of a sort of fall or a degeneration are about a sort of searching to become something more or be something more that actually resulted in losing the primary way of communicating, which I always sort of refer to. It's a heart intelligence, because for me that the heart sort of does encompass the whole being, but it's more than just feeling it in here. It is, I think, that if it's a true heart feeling, it will ripple through the whole body. And even more, you even start to feel it you feel yourself in things outside of your body, but you realize, oh, that's just an extension of your body.
Yeah, and the amazing thing is what I've noticed with me is when that happens, my mind doesn't try to, oh, you did a good job. You know how your mind will go over and it's like, oh, you did a good job, you did a bad job. It's like, no, it's like it takes that away from you. It's not right or wrong. It just, yeah, just
It's
is.
just what, yeah. Because you might have the sort of your mind might have the thought after, well, that's pretty neat, would be something that my
Yeah,
mind would say after
yeah,
that state.
yeah,
But actually that word, "it's pretty neat," comes from a feeling inside of satisfaction.
yes,
And again, satisfaction is just a way to describe it with language, but it's not, your mind might be like, oh, that's neat, but that comes from a feeling inside after having an experience like that. And
or I use wow, like, wow, that just happened,
yeah,
and,
wow
yeah,
the wow is a sort of very you're drawn to that word because it
it doesn't,
doesn't, unlike some words, it doesn't try and own that essence of that. It's like it's an expression. It's a very like spontaneous expression, isn't it? It's not thought really. Wow.
no, I don't even think about it. It just comes through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just like you said, there's like no attachments to it. It's
Mm.
just like a free word is what it feels like.
So true. It's so true. And people are like, and I've done it. You try and think what you mean, but actually, you just want to express. without actually thinking of what you're expressing. But people are in fear of doing that because so many people have got, let's say, in trouble by doing that. And I think that's because it's like damming a river. Well, if you then blow up the dam, yeah, there are going to be some floods below the dam. So we're sort of engineering a way to create those spaces, I guess, for people to express themselves.
Yes.
That
Yes.
sort of start off maybe like a nest, I guess. So not completely exposed to the whole world. So if you slip and you say something that you don't like then fall into fear of ever speaking again.
Yeah,
Um,
it's just like it's all right. And
yeah,
let it go. It's just like it's just like
that's
we
insight to
get
me.
so hung up on stuff that we say to ourselves, and then that like reloops it.
Yeah,
That's
we
what I,
agree.
yeah, I recognize that big time in myself. So,
Yeah, I
um,
think everyone.
yeah, and the energy now is just to connect to all you are. That's the
Yeah.
grand message that,
Oh, me too. And actually, a lot of it is also that connecting with other people at this moment on the planet is super valuable. I think connecting, it's got to come from, again, a place within. But I do get this calling, like these sort of connections that you and me have and we have with other people, which are very like open and vulnerable, but
yeah,
seriously like charged because of that. They create a lot of change, but I don't know, but they're creating change like the sun creates change, shining on everything around them rather than like being focused. And it's so interesting because actually I sort of have been like having this bit of a battle inside of myself, like, should I be more focused or more like, you know, doing more. It's often, and like I know a lot of people have that, but I sort of felt like, oh, I've got rid of most of that, but it comes back every now and again. And then I realized actually, it doesn't, like, if you look how really like well sustained energy sources seem to work, they don't seem to focus very much in their radiation. They focus on the cultivating of their energy, but not on the radiation of the energy. The radiation of the energy always seems to come out like just evenly around.
wow, I
But
still feel that.
yeah, and the focus is all inside. It's like that's where the I mean, again, it just depends how you view things. Like, is the sun the ball up in the sky, or is the sun everything that the light touches?
Yeah,
I sort of like the way that it's everything that the light touches, and that like the ball that we look at as the sun is the heart of the sun or something like that, but it's not the whole body.
yeah,
um and we are like, as the earth, we are part of the being of the sun.
yes,
It's an interesting way to see it, isn't it? And like
yes,
and 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 in that sense there's no so much separation, because actually, but obviously like other light hits the earth as well because we can see the stars. So
yes,
also the earth is part of those stars to
yes,
to in a larger organism. But at the same time, even in the smaller organism of just this sun, well, those stars are still part of this organism, just to a lesser extent. And if we see ourselves like that, we're then like, oh well, if that's the case, there's almost like it seems like there's a boost or like an extra incentive or an extra bit of energy that comes into us as individuals, if you want to call it that, to communicate with each other and to harmonize with each other. It's like there's a level of comfort that suddenly comes in because you realize, ah, we're all on the same team.
truly. You know what they're showing me right now? They keep showing me like a rose bush. You know how the rose bush and the flowers there's all different flowers on a rose bush.
Yeah.
They're all connected. One's
Yeah.
not competing against the other. They're all assisting each other to
Yeah.
flower. And I
Yeah.
feel that's like what's happening in the collective, like the rose bush of this flowering. Wow, I could just feel it through my whole
Mm,
heart.
mm, mm. Yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
Wow.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. And how we are, I'm just proud. I'm proud of me. I'm proud of I'm proud of all the people like you that you know how you go through life and you have people come and go, and then there's some that stay just like as a foundation to
Mm,
grow from. And that's what I feel like with you and a couple other people. I feel like this, wow, it just makes me feel like I could breathe. And this
yeah,
flower is happening, I could feel it. And then it's just gonna all connect.
it really is quite fascinating. It feels like so perfectly placed for this time where people are on the earth,
Yeah.
because it's like there's almost like exactly the right people, sort of, let's say, coming into flowering at different stages, and that's sort of incentivizing this connection, which then is creating energy all around the world, rather than, in the, it's like, we had enough. It's like the earth's flowered before to different degrees, but it's like
Yeah.
suddenly this harvest time, there's been enough, like, I don't know if it's surplus stored, or, like if you're planting a garden or something and it takes like 15 years for the fruit trees to come into fruit, and then um maybe there's some other things that would take a lot longer to do, where it feels like we, as, I want to like say like gardeners, but like stewards of the land, sort of came into a tipping point. And that tipping point has had these ramifications that we can now, like, I don't know what it is, but it's like it's moved to a sort of next way of being, like, oh well, I guess we've had it like throughout history in like material building. Oh, now you've figured out how to use fire. You can do, cook hot meals, and
Mm.
no, now you figured out how to create electricity. Oh, you can do a washing machine. Oh, now you figured out how to do the internet. You can communicate. But it's like the culmination of those culminations of those flowers is almost created a new medium to have the experience on. Um, and that is like pretty, that's the thing that's overwhelming, because if I try and understand what that means, if I listen to myself saying that, and I try to intellectualize it, I'm like, oh, this guy's talking, what is he talking about? It's weird. Um, but if you feel into it and you're like, oh well, what does it mean, like a new that we are creating a new medium to experience reality, I think would probably help some people understand where it's going. But it's more like, actually, we're creating a new life form with the out of ourselves, with the knowing that the spirit that inhabits ourselves, the one spirit that is the same one spirit that inhabits everything. Um, and I guess the distinction is, we were sort of coming from a point where we hadn't really fully grasped that we were also everything else, and that from this, like, we are the 0 point.
Yes.
People are always searching for the 0 point. We are that 0 point, And from that 0 point, you can go and experience any facet of life of the one consciousness.
Truly.
And the choice that you maybe want to make is, if you're going to make a choice, is to experience yourself as light.
Wow.
Because experiencing yourself as something other than light is to get trapped in the Maya.
Yeah,
In
it's
the
the loop.
illusion. It's the loop. Yeah.
It's all
Because
right.
light, everything is light. So if you're experiencing something that's not light, it's just the separation. You can't actually be not darkness. You can't be
Yes.
darkness. You can only like create the illusion of darkness around yourself, which then separates you from the other parts of light. So that's the way I see it anyway, but that's probably because that's the choice I've made. But I feel like there's a knowing inside of me that it's possible to make the other choice, but it's sort of like a choice of, oh, I'm gonna experience something that's not truth, or something that's not actually real, which is funny because it's a big fear. I think are in
You
the
know what? It's
collective.
so funny when you said that you want to make a choice to experience something that's not real. We do this with watching movies. We do this by checking into other people's stories. In a
Yeah,
way,
in
well,
a
I never
way.
seen it that
Yeah.
way before. Um,
I'm thinking about the movie there. That's interesting. Is the movie not real?
or is it?
In a sense, I sometimes I feel like it, like if someone it depends. If someone creates, it's real if you know that it's a movie. It's not real if you if you if you don't know it's a movie. It's a little bit like language in that sense. It's not the truth. It's not the source of. It's just it's a way to.
It's a viewpoint, is what my guides are saying.
It's a viewpoint. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. It's a way to view it.
yeah,
It's just like a movie is actually a way to view life.
yeah,
It's a way to experience life. It's a way to present it.
yeah.
Um, in this medium, in the 3D medium, I guess is that, if that's what we call it, or it is a 3D medium.
Truly, that it feels unstable, but it feels accurate. The
Yeah.
one thing that I've recognized too with myself is, you know how we always say we got to get into oneness, we got to get into oneness, and then we think that oneness is a tribe.
Mm,
That oneness
mm,
is all within us, and then it
mm,
brings all that oneness to us.
mm.
And so, like I just feel like this huge garden of beings are all coming together. Wow, I
Yeah,
just feel it
everywhere.
everywhere. I feel it through my whole core.
Legions. Mm. And yeah, I just feel that this time, particularly this in the northern hemisphere, this winter period, whether people have been aware of it or not, and actually probably this whole, in the greatest sense, this whole sort of last like year has been about the creation of a space for people to start presencing. Maybe presencing is a sense, but you need a presence to then process the emotions that need to flow for this new reality to I say new reality, but it's not really a new reality. It's coming full circle. it's
Truly.
it's sort of yeah, I mean, loads of symbology for, isn't it, like the return of the sort of reunification of a lot of
And
things.
I feel like there's a huge loop that's happening in time. The only way I can describe it is in years. You know how we're on 2021, but I feel like there's just huge growth because from 2012 to 2020 was all growth.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a time warp that is allowing that growth to happen on a bigger scale, is the word that they're bringing forward.
Okay, so like that sort of energy was sort of incubated and grown like a plant, which then produces more seeds of that energy, and those are now growing again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it just makes me feel giddy.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like almost like the consciousness landed in certain people over that period, possibly through the help of the trees and the plants and other ways of connecting.
I
And
feel
now
that.
that consciousness has actually, I think, flowered in a next wave of beings.
Yes.
And that's the consciousness that is like it's sort of its purpose. It's like it's just to connect with other forms of consciousness and then to grow out. And so that's why all these people around the planet who haven't even really known each other, you know, never have we had this scale of connection outside the village, or
Yeah.
not, I guess urbanization, when people started moving to cities, was an example of like connection really increasing. But compared to like the diversity and the breadth of the connection that is now happening, I think that's what people are starting to appreciate. It's like, wow, we actually could just stop all the offices and stuff, and like it seems like even all the stuff that's going against it, like people realize, oh, this is if if productivity is what's driving them, it's more productive.
Yeah.
But actually, I feel like that's just giving people the space to realize it's not about production, it's about the deepness of the connection, which comes from both parties being deep in presence,
Yes.
To varying degrees. And I feel like what's happening around the world is those people who have attuned into this that as a desire or like a path to follow, they like the presence of the connection, have connected with each other, have sort of manifested that connection with each other, and because they realize it's easier to be present with when you're around other people who are present
Absolutely.
to an extent. I think it's also it helps when you can move in and out of that to begin with, because you learn where you're being present and where other people are dragging you into the presence. And if you can bring the presence for yourself, it creates a better connection, I think, when both parties are grounded in the presence.
That's so perfectly put. I want to bring up something about that. Because I set my intentions every day to be present. Well, I've been being very aware of when I'm walking in and out of my own present state.
Yeah.
And it's so, when you start recognizing
it's
it,
humbling, isn't it?
It's so humbling. And you can feel the nowness in it. You can feel the difference, the magic in it. And so I was in front of my daughter, and she was speaking, and I could feel how I was being dragged out of my present state. And I had never recognized that before. How you can be present, and then somebody can, and it's like a tunnel vision.
Yes.
It felt like a tunnel vision. And then I caught myself, and then I excused myself, and then but I recognized it, and like I
And
never had before.
And it's sort of funny because then you're like, if you were maybe getting a little bit angry or whatever it was, and then you recognize it, you're like, oh, you sort of want to give yourself a pat on the back.
Exactly.
So you're immediately not angry, and then you realize, you've got to focus on the fact that you came to the awareness and not judge the part of you that was that, or the person who triggered you there, and actually instead realize the person who triggered you there is such a blessing, because they helped you come to that awareness.
Truly.
Yeah,
And
it's
you don't
so
get and I noticed that because I started laughing about it. I didn't get fixated on each part. I was gratitude for each part. There was so much gratitude for each part, and I'm really thankful for that. That I get to see in individuals um, beautiful my own energetic being. That's why we're coming together as a collective because we're
yeah,
learning off of each other. It's so freaking beautiful.
it is. It is. It's quite amazing. I could go on for all
Yeah,
night because I got a beautiful flow, but I might go and say goodnight to my son.
that feels amazing. Here, let me stop recording. Hey, I send love to all of you. Thank you.